the gang is all here, and we have two Brian Hallmans on the panel. I hate it when this happens because I have to guess which one to cancel out, and I always end up canceling out the wrong Brian Hallman. And look, we have a first timer, Brittany. Hey, Brittany, how you doing?
Straight from Texas.
I'm good. How are y'all?
Good, y'all. Woo!
Yeah, man. Well, that confirmed the Texas thing, huh?
Yeah, I mean, that's authentic, you know.
More Texans fans.
Let me do my Mr. Greenville, South Carolina impression for you, Brittany. Tell me if this passes muster, okay? Hi, how you doing? It's so nice to see you. My name's Mr. Greenville, South Carolina. You probably notice I sound something like Bill Clinton. That's because Arkansas is right next to South Carolina. Well, maybe not.
I'm in now.
Hey, the only geography I'm familiar with is female geography. Hillary never taught me none of that. Okay. So great having Stephen. Hi. Yep. And Rick, great to see you. Derek, love you. And hey, we have one Brian. We're ready to go, and we're on the air, and this is so cool. Oh, I love it. I love it when first-timers join the program and people in the chat room. Look at the chat room, too. We've got people waiting just to see me eat crow here. Mr. X and...
Hey, I got a question.
Wait, Roxanne, I have to say hi to the people in the chat room first. I go through this every single time. There was a guy who used to watch the show and be on the show. His name was Tubby Dog. And the way that I would announce his name was so annoying that people just stopped listening. It went something like this. Tubby Dog! I have no idea why I started doing that, but I'm glad I stopped until today. Phillips Lawson, Moo, how you doing? Big Lurker UK. Hello, Ron Shane, Anthony Stone. Hey. And Roxanne loves her shout out because all the neighborhood dogs come running when I do that. So where do we start today, panel?
Oh, can I ask my question?
Sure, Derek. Go right ahead.
Well, actually, I got two questions. All right. So, number one, if I, because I'm on the Google Hangouts window right now, if I go over to the YouTube stream, am I able to see comments and stuff and still be on?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
You should. Yeah, as long as you gotta listen to me. I'm going to use a radio expression: pot down potentiometer. If you lower your volume so that there's no volume coming out of the live stream.
Mute. Like,
I have that muted
on right now, so I have that on mute, but I have this live chat off mute. Does that make sense?
Okay. Second question.
Yes.
All right. So I've had this come up with a couple of my friends. Yes, I know it's surprising.
Okay.
I do. But
it's chlamydia, and an antibiotic will kill it. Now, what's next?
Okay, so here's my question.
Yes.
And I think this is a very interesting point. Who do you think has the upper edge for Rookie of the Year as far as, top tier rookie players? Do you think it's currently Saquon or Baker?
I think it's Saquon because he plays in New York. And I think that's the only reason. And I think that Saquon has had not only big yardage, but big receiving. I think that he's been everything that they expected him to be on a team that really isn't good, that doesn't have a good offensive line either. So I think that if you take all that into account, who do I think is going to be a more meaningful player in the long run? Baker Mayfield, because if he continues to have this quality offensive line supporting him, there's a greater chance that Barkley's career will go faster because of injury. What's up, Steve?
Usually running backs' careers only last 3 to 5 years.
That's right. I mean, you're looking at a guy like Baker who's 10 plus if you keep him standing straight.
And also, it's obvious that the quarterback position is probably the first to get that award, so they're probably going to switch it up and give it to the running back, considering
Dak
lifespan.
Only because
Dak got it over Zeke that 1 year.
Yeah, I mean, look, I don't have a problem with either man winning it. Let's put it that way. I mean, they're both fine young players, and they do different things. But I would much rather have Baker Mayfield than have Saquon Barkley. Looking back on it all, because honestly, Nick Chubb gives us enough of that we have a quality guy at the quarterback position, and we have a real plus runner, even though he's not the best running back in the league, plus. I'd rather have that combination. I mean, that's a
He's
great
a reliable running back.
Can I ask you a question? I know it's sort of off topic. I wanted to ask you a question.
Sure.
The Phoenix Suns owner, Mr. Robert Sarver, is
Mr.
asking.
Sarver.
He's one of the worst owners in the NBA, if not the worst. He's almost there with Donald Sterling. But my point is, he's fighting. My aunt lives in Phoenix, and she had me cover a story the other day about him going to the city council board, asking them for $230 million for the renovation for Phoenix, for their stadium or whatever, the Stick Resort or whatever they call it. And she said that the actual residents are protesting against it. She wants to know, do you consider that corporate welfare when these rich billionaire owners who avoid paying their taxes try to have the taxpayers subsidize the cost of their stadiums?
Well, first, let's put it in perspective. Sarver has never won a championship, but he had some good players and Steve Nash back in those years. So they did have, the Thunder, Marley years, and they did have some really good basketball players and good teams, all right, and Barkley and all of that. But let me explain that it's a difference between having just an owner who's just not done well in the way the new NBA is structured and maybe well past his prime, and a stupid owner like Ted Stepien, who would have gone to city council and said $230,000. Okay, so if you're going to think big, if nothing else. Do
you think it's corporate welfare?
I think that it's a choice that the city government has to make. And I think that the truth of the matter is it seems that in every instance, like when the Cleveland City Council dragged its feet on Art Modell, that Baltimore jumped right in. There's always a bigger prostitute when it comes to professional sports than anything else in the world. And the one thing that Sarver knows is that he can put the fire to the feet of the people in Phoenix. And if Phoenix drags its heels, there will be somebody in Las Vegas, or there still be somebody who's going to offer him the coin.
He's threatening to go to Vegas if they don't subsidize $130 million.
That's the way it works. Unfortunately, that's the way it works. But that's, again, the city has the opportunity to say no. Let's not put this at the feet of Sarver. The truth of the matter is that the city has a choice that it has to make.
But doesn't it suck that the smaller person has to pay for it? When you see these corporate guys make bad money-making decisions, it's always the smaller guy that pays for it.
I don't understand what the thrill is going to a venue anymore, whether it's the NBA, the NFL. The NFL, you freeze your ass off at a stadium with a bunch of hairy men. I'm sorry. If that hit home, I'm sorry, Stephen. Or you're at the NBA and you're overpaying for parking, and the food is infected with all kinds of bacteria, and you have to pay like 4 times the cost of what the food should cost just because you're sitting in that arena watching overpaid athletes. Everything is inflated. I don't get it. I have the best seat in the house watching it on TV, and yes, I indirectly pay because I'm paying for NBA league ticket, or I'm paying for Sunday ticket, or whatever it may be. But I don't understand the thrill of going to the venue anymore. I really don't. It's a ripoff.
It has a lot to do with why NFL ratings and NBA ratings are down in terms of like fan attendance. They're saying that that they've had some of the worst numbers in years.
Well, I think you can only pump so much air into a balloon. I think that there is some excitement involved in some of these sports, baseball being the one that has the least interest.
Yeah.
But, again, when you find out that Josh Donaldson got paid $23 million for 1 year, all right, and that's and he played for the Indians, and he basically sat at a spindle and rotated for the back month and a half of the season, and he's worth $23 million. It's like everything is inflated to hell, and it's not a good value. I always say to people, the worst gig in the world, unless you can just be rich from another source like Dan Gilbert is from his casinos and from Quicken Loans, owning a professional sports franchise today is either the acquiescence of baseball, that you suck and you just become the Kansas City Royals, or you become now the Cleveland Indians or the Pittsburgh Pirates forever. In football, there's at least this feeling that, hey, every year brings us a potential Baker Mayfield, and an 0-16 team can become a 500 team and then make the playoffs the following year. It is possible. It can happen. But basketball is the worst, I think. I mean, I was talking to somebody earlier today, a friend of mine, who said, LeBron James is a leech. I mean, he sucks everything into the situation for you when he's there, but when he's gone, he sucks everything right out of there.
Yeah, like a vacuum, like the black hole almost in space.
And it's happened to Cleveland twice with the same guy. So, I mean, this is what happens in professional sports. I wouldn't want to own a professional sports franchise. I really wouldn't. That's not a good thing. Yeah.
Hey, by the way.
Yes.
If you guys, I know this is going a little bit early, but if you're sitting there some night and you got nothing to do yourself a favor and look up funny town hall city meetings. It's one of the funniest things you can ever do. I spent a night from like 1 a.m. to 3 just watching these crazy people. So highly recommend that.
Okay, well, thanks for that. You know, it wasn't early for that, Derek. It should never have happened at all, but it's okay. It's okay. This is all
the masses of people leaving now.
This land is mine. God gave this land. That's the theme from Exodus, Derek. If you're wondering, okay. I know. I'm right over Derek's head. Over his
Mr. Boohead, you were right on.
I'm watching. They had a food commercial on TV. I lost my attention. It looked good.
Okay. This is kind of random today, but it's okay. It's Monday. I can play along. I want to go.
And we're rolling on 2 hours of sleep today.
All right. Well, I want to go back to the post-game show because that's what this show's all about. And the post-game show is over 1,000 viewers already, and it was one of the most polarizing of all Browns post-game shows that I've ever done. Because usually you get, Moohead fans who is like giving all thumbs up. This was 50-50, thumbs up, thumbs down. I mean, there are a lot of people who are upset at Mr. Moohead. Me, the big and furry bovine.
Hey, I defended you. Calm down.
Maybe it was Broncos fans that disliked the video just because they lost.
Well, I mean, there's going to be some people who just thumbs down it, but there are a lot of people who are Browns fans who just liked what I had to say regarding Greg Williams.
That's probably.
And I think it's fair after now after 48 hours to be able to review this and say, hey, do you really feel differently about Greg Williams now that you've really had a chance to think about it, read press stories, see how other people are reacting to this, and quite frankly, I don't understand why nobody in the Cleveland press even so much as addressed this, why we get these bogus fucking stories from Mary Kay Cabbagehead about how much faith Greg Williams has in the defense. I want to think this thing through one more time for people to understand what it is I'm saying, because I'm not going to eat one fucking word that I said. In fact, I'm going to double down. The fact of the matter is there were 2 mistakes that were made in the game. And I'm not talking about the Browns. I'm talking about the end of the game. And I will read, and I had to actually look for accounts of this. And, SB Nation on their NFL section, wrote the worst, dumbest plays in week 15. Number 1 was, of course, Vance Joseph kicking a field goal rather than trying to win and save his job. That's right. The Broncos were down 4. You remember, facing 4th and 1 from the Cleveland 6. They were under 5 minutes to play, and Denver had like one healthy cornerback because everyone else had been carried off the field. Vance Joseph, who just moments before used a correct challenge for once in his life, decided to kick a field goal. So then the Broncos trailed 17-16. Then he tried to defend his decision after the game. I want points there. We had 1 timeout and 2-minute warning. So I trust our defense is going to get a stop there. Okay? If we don't get points there, touchdown has to win it. It was my decision to take the points. Right. That was the number 1 mistake made, according to SB Nation and everybody else that you talk to in the NFL. Is like, why would a guy against the Cleveland Browns with his cornerbacks decimated, why would he not try to score the game-winning field goal? But then we're confronted with Greg Williams. Mm-hmm. Greg Williams, so if we follow Vance Joseph's twisted logic in a situation like this, he believed that he could kick the field goal, get the football back, and kick another field goal and win, right? That's what Vance Joseph's strategy was. And he was right. He did get the ball back. Do you want to know why he got the ball back? Because of Greg Williams.
So
So the worst decision that was made in the NFL, according to multiple national sources, was actually in context after the fact the right thing to do. Because he did get the ball back, his offense did get the ball back, and Greg Williams did everything he could to get them the ball back. And regardless of what Greg Williams said after the game, and I read all of his quotes, this notion of, well, Greg, really, you know, and Greg Williams now he's pulling a Hugh, okay? I don't like this shit. When people pull a Hugh, it's like after the fact, oh, I really believe in my offense. I trusted my offense. That's why we went on it on 4th down. It's like, no. They jumped off sides, you schmuck. The play was designed. Now he's trying to say, well, it was a quarterback sneak. So what you're telling me is on 4th down, your original call was to go for a long yard with a quarterback sneak. Good. That's really good, Greg. When did you make that up? How many minutes after the game did you make this shit up? The fact of the matter is,
burying himself a different, bigger hole.
And Baker Mayfield ain't going to say shit about it because we won the football game. But the bottom line was that play was designed to get them to jump off sides, and they did.
Yeah.
But Greg wouldn't let it happen. And then Greg, why did he come back after that and say, I got better call a timeout because, let's say he called the wrong play. And it was a quarterback sneak, and the other team knew it, which I don't know how in the hell you tell by lining up. Quarterback sneak, you find a crease and you dive through it. I don't know what defensive alignment that Greg saw in that instant that made him change and call a timeout. Hallelujah! I've seen the light. That play ain't going to work. He spared them the offsides penalty and then called a deep handoff that lost 2 yards, that got them the ball back with enough time to kick the winning field goal in the game. Now, the fact that they have a quarterback in Case Keenum who can't throw the ball, any further than little Timmy Bartholomew, that might have something to do with the problem. But
I can throw farther.
But I can't sit here and tell you that all this, and then I believe in my defense too. So first you believed in your offense, but you didn't let Baker win the game. What you did is you handed the ball off deep on a sweep to a runner who's a between the tackles runner, and you tried to run outside. That's the first thing we have to buy from this, and I'm not buying that for a minute. It's a horrible call, and that's not the way Nick Chubb is used effectively. If you were afraid about a quarterback sneak because you were afraid that maybe Baker's not big enough to push the pile, wouldn't you give the ball to Nick Chubb between the tackles because he leads the league and after contact yardage? You saw that posted multiple times during the game. So there comes a time when I say I respectfully disagree with somebody, and then there's another time when I get these comments, people calling me an idiot, where Mr. Moohead's answer is a little more direct, and that's lick my asshole. Okay? So, this is where we're at. This is lick my asshole territory. And those people who are going to call me an idiot, I just want you to know, Brittany, the content of the show, unfortunately, does not change with a lady present. I'm part of the Me Too movement. Somebody stands up and says, I'm a vulgar son of a bitch. And I say, me too.
Mr. Moohead, to be fair, if Vance Joseph would have went for it on 4th down instead of taking the 3 and getting the stops, as you say, let's say he missed that 4th down and then he got the ball back down 4, and then he would have to play for the touchdown. Wouldn't he be facing that same scrutiny from the media? Said, well, why didn't you just kick the 3 earlier? Then you would just needed a field goal.
I mean, some of that is to me, it isn't a question that Greg Williams made the wrong call to just go for it on 4th down. It's that he changed his mind and he changed into a play that had less of a chance of working. That's the thing. And if you really believe in your offense, don't you give your future quarterback an opportunity to roll out or to do something and make a play and end that football game? Because again, either way you look at it, you're stopped. If you're stopped, you're stopped. You've got to stop them on defense then. But it doesn't ring truthful with what Greg Williams is saying, because he didn't trust his defense, because if you trust your defense, you kick the field goal, you go up by 4, and you believe that your defense isn't going to give up a touchdown. So none of this makes sense in context. So again,
going for it on 4th and 1, the whole play call design, like you said, was just plain stupid. And then to call a timeout, you have a chance to fix your mistake. Then you take the ball out of Baker GX Mayfield's hands and you hand it off to Nick Chubb. If you looked at that before the play even, before they snapped the ball, they were gunning. And I mean gunning. You've seen everybody on the line just ready to fire for, Nick Chubb. You could tell. You could tell as soon as that ball snapped who it was going to. So it's stupid not to take the field goal, make them drive, whatever you said, 70-some yards, and make them score. They didn't do it all game sufficiently. So why would you risk that? You practically handed them the golden opportunity, and whatever.
Yeah. Now, D-Cup Toe Juice. This is a guy who's making like 30 comments on the show. I mean, he's actually putting the time in when I say something. All right. And I've been very nice to this person. I've been very, very nice. And I believe in engaging my viewers. All right. But this fanboy stuff has just got to come to an end. Here's the comment. I'm really worried about Denzel Ward and his concussions. He could be a major bust if he cannot stay healthy next year. Oh, and by the way, who is the first person to recognize the importance of tackling technique? It's like Greg Williams is the first person in football history who's told a defensive back not to hit a guy with his head up.
You learned that from the early days.
You learn that in fucking peewee football. It's like, stop with
I
the
learned
Greg
it in
Williams
Biddy.
thing. You want Greg Williams that bad. I understand that there's that bounty video on him. And yes, he's clothed, but I don't think you need that much for stimulation, D-Cup Toe Juice. If you just see him threatening people to kill people and to maim them, that might be enough to get you hard. So leave me alone.
Well,
leave me alone.
And I actually got a concussion when I was in middle school high school, freshman year. I got concussion in high school from tackling, with crown and helmet. And I never did that again. You learn from that. But,
That's what happened to me my sophomore year. I tackled with my helmet, got a concussion, and I stopped doing it after that.
Yeah, I mean,
for the record, I laid him out. So get that.
Let's get that straight. That's that macho streak in Derek. No, the other thing I'll tell you is that lots of guys get concussions without obviously doing something stupid. It's part of the game. Unfortunately, I'm watching people with their head contacting the ground getting concussions right now. There's so much force.
Sometimes you can get hit by so hard you feel that sting in your head, because I've had that happen to me. Yeah. That's not a non-head contact injury. It's
like whiplash. I mean, it's such intense speed and power in this game right now. So, I look at this and I say, I don't know. It's like this has nothing to do with Greg Williams. So I am not buying into the Greg Williams thing as far as that he believes in his defense, believes in his offense. I think he made a mistake. I think he covered for his mistake. And that when he didn't make it, he was too he didn't want to go back and then kick the field goal, because then he would be able to be called wishy-washy, because then if our kicker, the amazing Greg Joseph, goes out of the field, and if he misses the field goal and he changed his mind from going for it on fourth down to kicking the field goal, and the field goal was unsuccessful, then they're going to call Greg Williams wishy-washy. And
we still got the lead.
That's like a flip-flopper. That's like political flip-flopping. That's one of the worst things you can do. I mean, better that you should just be a Jew hater from start to finish than to actually see the wrongness of your ways and change your thinking. Because a flip-flopper, if you're a flip-flopper, the Aryan nation is never going to love you again if you decide to see the light. The fact is, in the NFL, you take the most protectable position. And Greg Williams' protectable position was, see, I wanted to go for it all along. See? I never had a doubt. And that way, nobody questions it. But I know he had a doubt, because he went running up to call that fucking timeout so fast, he peed his pants.
Yep.
You could see the moisture just trickling down his leg. Watch the film. Watch the film. God damn.
I'll be surprised if he's here next year.
Yeah. Well,
go ahead. Do you see Pittsburgh or Baltimore possibly making a deep run in the playoffs, and with the Lamar Jackson situation in Baltimore, he's a run-first quarterback.
Yep.
Do you see that lasting very long?
No. And I think that Baltimore is riding a crest of unfamiliarity. And I think we've seen this before with pitchers in baseball, young pitchers who may not be the most special pitchers in the minor leagues, but they come up and get off to a really fast start because the hitters just aren't used to seeing them. They get film on them, and that's that. We've seen it with quarterbacks all over the NFL. They come out and they start out being really, really solid. Then when there's more film on them, they end up having a tell is what it amounts to, and people can read that. And I look at Baltimore, and people prepared for Baltimore with a statue-like quarterback in Joe Flacco, and now they have this running quarterback. And it's a simplified offense, and they're winning with defense. But I don't believe that the Baltimore Raven defense is good enough to stop the point-making capability of teams in the NFL in 2018/2019. And I don't believe that John Harbaugh, who is a defensive coordinator, has found some kind of amazing fountain of youth. I think his career is at the tail end. And I think that Lamar is a perfectly fine athletic quarterback, but there is going to be a team that is going to scheme him either before the playoffs begin or in the first round of the playoffs, and they're going to make his life miserable, and they're going to get their butt kicked. Pittsburgh, on the other hand, is a team that you wonder about. Their kicker looks like he's drunk. I don't know what that's all about, but God, he can't kick the ball straight, so that's not good. Roethlisberger can have moments where he looks like he's fading, but then he has these games and periods of time where he's unstoppable. He's getting a ton out of Juju Schuster. I mean, I think that, he's doing everything he can do, and their running game is working. I think Pittsburgh has a better chance to advance further than Baltimore would, but I don't think either of these teams are creme de la creme Super Bowl teams. So,
well, one would have to go on the road to win to get to the Super Bowl.
Yeah, and that certainly wouldn't be an easy task for anyone.
And Mr. Muhead, do you think the Chargers and the Colts could present to be the dark horse in the AFC if both of those make the playoffs? Because both of those teams are playing really well football right now.
Well, look, your Texans are in great position, Stephen, but by nothing that they've done in the last couple of weeks. All right. They've really sucked donkey dick the last couple of weeks.
I agree.
But what happened around them solidified their position, which is just as good. You want to get all this shit out of your system. I told you that now. To get it out of your system now. I don't believe in the Indianapolis Colts because the Indianapolis Colts may be hot right now, but so are the Cleveland Browns. And you don't really believe that the Cleveland Browns would make a deep playoff run. So I guess I'm looking at it maybe like, it's a nice story about Andrew Luck and the Colts, but they're not a creme de la creme team again.
What about the Chargers?
They're hot now, but that can go away as quick as it came. And the Chargers, Philip Rivers is going to have to prove to me. He's going to have to prove to me. There's a lot of,
Can I ask y'all a question about the playoff seeding? The Chargers could possibly go 13-3 and have a better record than possibly 5 teams in the AFC, which means they would have to play on the road. Do you think they should in the future reconsider seeding? Like you take the 4 division winners, 2 wild cards, and you rank them 1 through 6 based on record?
Well, I don't think anybody foresaw the Chargers having this good of a season, and I think it's easy to take individual seasons into account and say we got to change the rules because of this. But how often does this sort of thing really happen?
But at 13-3, and you got to play on the road to teams that barely won 8, 9 games, I feels a little far fetched.
Yeah, it has happened before though with NFC East teams and with I think it was the Redskins in Dallas one year, and then it was the Eagles in Dallas.
Because Kansas City and the Chargers both have the best records in the AFC.
Yes.
But one's going to be punished because they're both in the same division. I'm like, why should you punish the other one because the other one is their successor? Why don't you just make them both 1 and 2?
But
don't sleep on the Chargers. They can beat the Chiefs.
Yeah, without even getting into the argument of which of those 2 teams is better, the truth is if people were picking this in the beginning of the year, they would not have picked that the Chargers would be even. I mean, and the fact is this may be an aberration season for the Chargers, and they may go back to just being the Chargers again next year.
Okay, I guess that's the question I want to ask you, Mr. Muhead. Are you okay with the current playoff format season?
Oh, yes, absolutely, because I think because there have been a number of teams who honestly have won Super Bowls who didn't have the greatest regular seasons. I think that there is there is past precedent for teams to walk in with barely above 500 records and winning the Super Bowl. So, you know, I mean, it's great the teams have the opportunity. If the Colts get in, that's great. Do I see them winning multiple games in the playoffs? No, but you never know. That's what makes the game interesting, and it's better for the game that way.
Hey, Mr. Muhammad, am I the only person that doesn't want to see an 18-game season? Because, like, I know the NFL keeps flirting with that idea in the future. Do you think that's good or bad for the league?
I don't want to see an 18-game season either.
Yeah, me neither.
You're asking me if I want to see it?
Yeah, an 18-game season.
I mean, no. First of all, preseason games are enough of a joke as it is because the last game isn't even a game that counts and nobody even cares except maybe a few people who are trying to make a specials teams group. The third game is the only game that seemingly matters, and more people end up with soft tissue injuries because of preseason football than you can imagine. Because no matter how they try to sell it, the athletes are not stretched out properly, and a lot of them are coming off of the combine if they're coming into the league, and they end up with soft tissue injuries. An 18-game season, though, is brutal. Because we think we have damage now, you add literally, you know, like what amounts to about 12% more football every season. You know what you're going to end up with? You're going to end up with more injuries.
They would have to expand the rosters to like 68 players to make that work.
Well, and they're going to have more coming too with the XFL, and there's a couple other leagues coming too. So there's alternate football entertainment coming. I mean, it's not like you have to have that many NFL games.
Yeah, I mean, anybody who's looking forward to getting the XFL back is just, you know, I got some swampland for you.
I don't know what Vince McMahon's doing.
Got a team, so I'm glad to see that.
Vince McMahon. The only thing I wish Vince McMahon would get would be cancer and just off the planet. What a bad person he is. Just a bad human being. And no, I'm not, you know, to me, they've milked 16 games out of this, and they've done what they can to sell this thing to the networks, to as many networks, and bid it up as much as they can. They've gotten the price of regular, you know, to the over the television satellite broadcast, the league pass jacked up in price. So you really can't negotiate with companies like you used to, because DirecTV is now AT&T, and now you can't really negotiate with any of them. So they've really beefed up their profits, and enough is enough. 18 games. I don't want my star players exposed to 18 games.
Now it's going to be more watered down.
I hope it's more injury risks.
Yeah, it's just not a good idea. But, you know, the only other article, by the way, that I could find that referenced the Greg Williams situation and all of this was Touchdown Wire, which is USA Today, basically. And it says, the headline is Cleveland Browns defense saves Greg Williams. And the first sentence says it all. Greg Williams is the luckiest man on the face of the stadium at Mile High Turf this Saturday.
Amen.
So, yeah, sometimes luck has something to do with it. We've seen coaches make bad decisions that turned out really bad. What I don't understand is this blindness that we happen to be winning some games right now, which is wonderful, but this crest of emotion when bad decisions are made. Had we lost that game, it would have been one more pathetic Cleveland loss based on an uninformed decision. So that's kind of what I see. So that was the other site that actually called them out for that. Now, anyone on the panel want to bring up anything? Because I'm trying to do shorter shows here because I'm going off pain meds, and I'm sitting here in my
I got
studio.
something to say.
Yeah, go right ahead.
I just wanted to say, tell my buddy who's in the chat, thanks for coming on. He's got his own channel, and he's partially the one who inspired me to pursue this. So,
who's your friend in the chat?
His name's Dylan Lowe.
I'm sorry?
Yep.
Dylan Lowe?
Dylan Lowe.
Hi, Dylan. How you doing, man?
He's got his own YouTube channel, too, so go subscribe to him. By the way, people on this freaking chat, please like, please subscribe, turn on your notifications. because there's no reason why we can't have more likes.
Yeah.
I guess I'm not that vain a person. You know, I'm not looking to be.
There's one more thing I wanted to cover. Also,
Yes.
the possibility of adding a third wild card team. Yes or no?
No.
They said, in other words, what Mr. Roger Goodell talked about was that he was only going to give one bye to the number one seed in each conference. So two would have to play 7 in the first round.
You know, I guess
Really?
the problem is sub mediocrity. At what point are we just slicing the pie in so many, that it means less to make the playoffs? And I'm looking at teams like Baltimore, even Cleveland, who are technically have a 1% chance of making it in, but teams that are really 500 or slightly below 500 teams fighting for that final playoff spot. And I'm thinking if we go one deeper than that, it's going to be a lot like the March Madness show. There's always going to be somebody who feels bad that they were left out of the running. But if your record is 500 or below, you don't belong in the playoffs. I really don't think.
Well, then it turns into the baseball playoffs.
Right. Where you know what's going to happen anyway. I mean, in a short series, when teams have 5 starters deep against, a team like the Indians who got basically nothing up front, you can just call a sweep.
Or like the NBA playoffs where you got the Warriors at 80 wins against the Clippers with 40,
Yeah, that's right. I mean, it's a total lack of balance, and that's not good for fan base either. So, no, I wouldn't put on a third team, although I am happy that there are some teams that will be close to 500 teams that will make it to the playoffs because under the current system, they're allowed to do that. But I wouldn't expand it, no.
Oh, also, Mr. Mueller, can I give a shout out to Brittany? She did time in the military, so I wanted to give her kind of like a shout out for that. Brittany, thank you for your service. I don't know if she wants to go over how many years she did in service, but
No, she's saying no. You're embarrassing her.
I think it was the Army she was in. Was it the Army, Brittany?
Wait.
Or the Air Force?
She might not have a mic on.
Oh.
No, she doesn't have No, she's just kind of. Yeah, I think she. Yeah.
Oh, by the way, I did post the link to my mic.
The Army. And she had a concussion too when she was in there.
Yeah, concussions are nothing to laugh at, man.
Yeah,
that is a weird, screwed up feeling in the head. I think almost every kid who played football, even though we didn't think about it back then, everybody got concussions. I knew a kid who played quarterback for my high school team who got a concussion, and it messed him up for like two and a half weeks, and he wasn't himself. And
I've had two.
And back then, with the helmets that didn't fit real good, their heads were getting jogged around. I mean, that was all the way back in the 70s. It was not a pleasant thing. So, all right.
Imagine the leather helmets.
Yeah. Well, actually, no, the leather helmets prevented people from slamming into people with their heads. So there was some common sense to some of the old accoutrements of football wear.
You never had a concussion, have you, Mr. Mued?
I've never had a concussion. I've talked to a lot of people who have, and they've explained the feeling, and it's got to be a very, very scary feeling. I've talked to boxers who had concussions when they were knocked out. It's a very scary thing, and you never hear about it in
boxing. Feels like hell for a long time.
Well, boxers get knocked out all the time, and it's scary as hell because that's exactly what's happening to a fighter who gets knocked out. And people don't talk about concussions in boxing because, there's further brain damage that gets discussed in boxing after fighters, retire.
What is that stuff they develop in their brain when they get hit so many times with the boxers? They talked about it. What is it that they develop in their brain?
Well, fighters, there is something called pugilistica dementia that is a separate thing. It's not Alzheimer's. It's a different form of dementia that is caused by the repeated brain trauma of boxing. So that's one disorder. I think there's a lot of people who believe that amyotrophic lateral sclerosis, Lou Gehrig's disease, is brought on. We've seen football players with that from repeated head trauma. So, it's an ugly thing. And I think in most cases with fighters, it's a form of dementia that is not exactly Alzheimer's, but Sugar Ray Robinson, one of the greatest fighters of all time, ended up with dementia. and it doesn't spare the greats. Let's put it that way.
Muhammad Ali, didn't he get damage too? The brain damage. Muhammad Ali.
Muhammad Ali, yeah, he had brainstem damage, and unlike other forms, he did not have cognitive malfunction. He had motor malfunction because of brainstem trauma. And they believe it was from the way he avoided getting hit. If you watch so many of Ali's fight videos, he was always pulling back and snapping his head back constantly and absorbing the punch as he was going away, which is why he was able to absorb as much as he did. But in that process, the base of the skull back here in the brainstem, there was trauma. And that's why he had what they considered to be not Parkinson's disease, but Parkinson's syndrome, that was part of a brainstem injury caused by repeated trauma. It's a tough thing.
Hey, I wanted to ask you guys, when we were asking questions, I seen in the comments too. What do you think about Jared Goff's recent decline in play? He's struggled the last few weeks. Last night he didn't look that great as well.
Yeah. Six picks and no interception and no touchdowns. Yeah, I mean, again, this all balances out. Did anybody think the Rams would be 11-2? Going into the game. I mean, and the answer is, well, probably not. And if did anybody think that Jared Goff was the best quarterback in the NFL? I don't think so. But I think we saw Nick Foles ride a wave, and
Nick looked better than Jared did.
And Jared might have been riding a wave, and he might still be an exceedingly fine quarterback. But it evens out. I think that. It gets later in the season, the wear and tear, the questions about Goff were about his strength, about his, how little weight he carried in the bottom half of his body. He may be getting tired. You just don't know. The wear and tear of the league is tremendous. And, I got to get running, guys, because my body's telling me to get up. All right. Thanks, everybody.
Nice to see you downstairs.
Yeah, you're right. Thanks, everybody, for tuning into this edition of Moohead Radio. We'll be back again on Friday with the Friday edition. Another Browns pregame show. Once again, the Bengals are coming back. It's going to be 180 degrees, right back to where we started from. With
the welcome back show for you.
Yeah, and let's get the lake ready for him, except no way out of the lake. All right, everybody. Thanks for tuning in. We'll see you again on Friday. Until then, hasta la vista, Pasture Heads. Good night.
Moo.